A student's overview of the Ageless wisdom was carefully compiled from the following books by Alice A. Bailey. A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. Esoteric Psychology, Volumes 1 and 2. Esoteric Healing. Esoteric Astrology. The Rays and the Initiations. Students are encouraged to download the free PDF version of this overview by following the link in the video's description, or to order a printed copy at cost from thebookpatch.com, but are advised to read the original, unabridged books in order to gain deeper insight into the ageless wisdom. Students are also invited to join our online study group at facebook.com/groups/students of the ageless wisdom. Chapter 59 Esoteric Healing. The laws and rules enumerated. Note: certain of the rules are related to certain of the laws and will be considered by me in their rightful relationship. I have asked AAB to give here a list of the 10 laws and, where a rule is related to a particular law, to give it with that law. The rules are renumbered and do not follow in the order earlier given. D.K. Law I. All disease is the result of inhibited soul life. This is true of all forms in all kingdoms. The art of the healer consists in releasing the soul so that its life can flow through the aggregate of organisms which constitute any particular form. Law 2. Disease is the product of and subject to 3 influences. First, a man's past, wherein he pays the price of ancient error. Second, his inheritance, wherein he shares with all mankind those tainted streams of energy which are of group origin. Third, he shares with all the natural forms that which the Lord of Life imposes on his body. These 3 influences are called the ancient law of evil sharing. This must give place some day to that new law of ancient dominating good which lies behind all that God has made. This law must be brought into activity by the spiritual will of man. Rule 1. Let the healer train himself to know the inner stage of thought or of desire of the one who seeks his help. He can thereby know the source from whence the trouble comes. Let him relate the cause and the effect and know the point exact through which relief must come. Law 3. Disease is an effect of the basic centralization of a man's life energy. From the plane whereon those energies are focused proceed those determining conditions which produce ill health. These therefore work out as disease or as freedom from disease. Law 4. Disease, both physical and psychological, has its roots in the good, the beautiful, and the true. It is but a distorted rejection of divine possibilities. The thwarted soul, seeking full expression of some divine characteristic or inner spiritual reality, produces, within the substance of its sheaths, a point of friction. Upon this point the eyes of the personality are focused and this leads to disease. The art of the healer is concerned with the lifting of the downward focused eyes unto the soul, the true healer within the form. The spiritual or third eye then directs the healing force and all is well. Rule 2. The healer must achieve magnetic purity, through purity of life. He must attain that dispelling radiance which shows itself in every man when he has linked the centers in the head. When this magnetic field is established, the radiation then goes forth. Law V. There is naught but energy, for God is life. 2 energies meet in man, but other 5 are present. For each is to be found a central point of contact. The conflict of these energies with forces and of forces twixt themselves produce the bodily ills of man. The conflict of the first and second persists for ages until the mountain top is reached, the first great mountain top. The fight between the forces produces all disease, all ills and bodily pain which seeks release in death. The 2, the 5 and thus the 7, plus that which they produce, possess the secret. This is the fifth law of healing within the world of form. Rule 3. Let the healer concentrate the needed energy within the needed center. Let that center correspond to the center which has need. Let the two synchronize and together augment force. Thus shall the waiting form be balanced in its work. Thus shall the two and the one, under right direction, heal. End of page 301. Law 6. When the building energies of the soul are active in the body, then there is health, clean interplay and right activity. When the builders are the lunar lords and those who work under the control of the moon and at the behest of the lower personal self, then you have disease, ill health and death. Law 7. When life or energy flows unimpeded and through right direction to its precipitation, the related gland, then the form responds and ill health disappears. Rule 4. A careful diagnosis of disease, based on the ascertained outer symptoms, will be simplified to this extent, that once the organ involved is known and thus isolated, the center in the etheric body which is in closest relation to it will be subjected to methods of occult healing, though the ordinary, ameliorative, medical or surgical methods will not be withheld. Law 8. Disease and death are the results of two active forces. One is the will of the soul, which says to its instrument, I draw the essence back. The other is the magnetic power of the planetary life, which says to the life within the atomic structure, the hour of reabsorption has arrived. Return to me. Thus, under cyclic law, do all forms act. Rule 5. The healer must seek to link his soul, his heart, his brain and his hands. Thus can he pour the vital healing force upon the patient. This is magnetic work. It cures disease or increases the evil state, according to the knowledge of the healer. The healer must seek to link his soul, his brain, his heart and auric emanation. Thus can his presence feed the soul life of the patient. This is the work of radiation. The hands are needed not. The soul displays its power. The patient's soul responds through the response of his aura to the radiation of the healer's aura, flooded with soul energy. Law 9. Perfection calls imperfection to the surface. Good drives evil from the form of man in time and space. The method used by the perfect one and that employed by good is harmlessness. This is not negativity but perfect poise, a completed point of view and divine understanding. Rule 6. The healer or the healing group must keep the will in leash. It is not will that must be used, but love. Law 10. Hearken, O disciple, to the call which comes from the son to the mother, and then obey. The word goes forth that form has served its purpose. The principle of mind then organisms itself and then repeats that word. The waiting form responds and drops away. The soul stands free. Respond, O rising one, to the call which comes within the sphere of obligation, recognize the call emerging from the ashram or from the council chamber where waits the Lord of Life himself. The sound goes forth. Both soul and form together must renounce the principle of life and thus permit the monad to stand free. The soul responds. The form then shatters the connection. Life is now liberated, owning the quality of conscious knowledge and the fruit of all experience. These are the gifts of soul and form combined. This last law is the enunciation of a new law which is substituted for the law of death, and which has reference only to those upon the later stages of the path of discipleship and the stages upon the path of initiation. End of page 302. The 7 techniques for healing. The techniques I shall have to give in the form of 7 ancient symbolic statements or formulas, gathered out of the Book of Rules for Initiated Disciples. I dare not yet give the simple physical application of these ray techniques, as it would be too dangerous. When rightly used and understood, they carry terrific force and, in the wrong hands, could work real damage. May I remind you here that the Black Lodge initiates likewise heal or produce death and disease, and employ very similar techniques. The difference lies in the fact that they can work only with the personality rays of both healer and patient, and because they are more potent on the physical plane than are the members of the Great White Lodge, their work is frequently most effective. The spiritual healer, working with the energies of light whenever possible, is seldom as effective physically. The members of the Black Lodge, or healers working under its influence, are, however, totally unable to work on a patient who is spiritually oriented to the slightest degree, and is therefore coming under the control of the soul. Neither can they work through a healer who is spiritually oriented. When they attempt to do so, they find themselves combated by energy coming from the ashram towards which either the healer or the patient is moving or with which he is affiliated, even if he has his place only upon the periphery. Where the average unthinking man is concerned, the danger of black interference is nil. The dark forces do not interest themselves in any unimportant person, save with those of potency and influence who can serve their ends. Also, their evil work is only possible at the moment, or cycle, wherein the man is making decision as to whether he will move in spiritual living, remain static where he is, or turn with deliberation, which is exceedingly rare, to the path of pure selfishness. This path leads to the Black Lodge. Some disciple in the early part of next century will take these techniques or magical statements, relating to the healing work, and interpret them and elucidate them. They are susceptible of 3 significances, the lowest of which the modern student may succeed in interpreting for himself if he reflects adequately and lives spiritually. The first ray technique. Let the dynamic force which rules the hearts of all within Shambhala come to my aid, for I am worthy of that aid. Let it descend unto the 3rd, pass to the 5th and focus on the 7th. These words mean not what doth at sight appear. The 3rd, the 5th, the 7th lie within the 1st and come from out the central sun of spiritual livingness. The highest then awakens within the one who knows and within the one who must be healed, and thus the two are one. This is mystery deep. The blending of the healing force effects the work desired. It may bring death, that great release, and re-establish thus the 5th, the 3rd, the 1st, but not the 7th. This dynamic first-ray energy is usually employed by the trained spiritual healer when it is apparent to him that the patient's hour has come and release approaches. In cases where the first ray is the sole ray of either healer or patient, this application of first ray energy must move from head center to head center, and from thence to the area of distress and to the center allied with the location. This may cause, when healing is possible and karmically correct, a temporary increase of the trouble. This is owing to the fact that the incoming energy expels dynamically the very seed or roots of the disease. There may be a rise in temperature, or a collapse of some kind or another, and for this the healer, the patient and the attendant physician must be prepared and should take the needed physical steps for amelioration, steps as ordained by the orthodox medical profession, which will offset the purely physical reaction. Where the sole ray of the patient is not on the first ray, but the first ray is the ray of the personality, the healer must use great caution in applying first ray energy, and should proceed very slowly and gradually through the center on the line of 1-3-5-7, which is nearest to the seat of trouble, passing the energy through that center and thence to the center, whichever that may be, found in the locality of the disease. If that particular center happens to be on the line of 3-5-7, the healer will have to exercise special care, or else the dynamic first ray energy will destroy and not heal. End of page 303. The second ray technique. Let the healing energy descend, carrying its dual lines of life and its magnetic force. Let that magnetic living force withdraw and supplement that which is present in the seventh, opposing 4 and 6 to 3 and 7, but dealing not with 5. The circular, inclusive vortex, descending to the point, disturbs, removes and then supplies, and thus the work is done. The heart revolves, 2 hearts revolve as one, the 12 within the vehicle, the 12 within the head and the 12 upon the plane of soul endeavor, cooperate as one, and thus the work is done. 2 energies achieve this consummation, and the 3 whose number is a 12 respond to the greater 12. The life is known and the years prolonged. The third ray technique. The healer stands and weaves. He gathers from the 3, the 5, the 7 that which is needed for the heart of life. He brings the energies together and makes them serve the third. He thus creates a vortex into which the one distressed must descend, and with him goes the healer, and yet they both remain in peace and calm. Thus must the angel of the Lord descend into the pool and bring the healing life. The pool of waters figures here and may cause much questioning as to its significance. Its elementary interpretation relates in reality to the central and major cause of much disease, as we have earlier seen, the emotional nature, which it is the task of the third aspect of divinity to control. Ponder on this, for much enlightenment may come. The next healing technique is longer and far more abstruse. There is little of it that you will understand. It is entirely related, as far as our theme is concerned, to man himself and to the aphorism, "Man, know thyself." The fourth ray technique. The healer knows the place where dissonance is found. He also knows the power of sound and the sound which must be heard. Knowing the note to which the fourth great group reacts and linking it to the great creative 9, he sounds the note which brings release, the note which will bring absorption into 1. He educates the listening ear of him who must be healed. He likewise trains the listening ear of him who must go forth. He knows the manner of the sound which brings the healing touch, and also that which says, "Depart." And thus the work is done. This fourth technique is one that, in default of true ray knowledge, can be of general usefulness, because this fourth ray governs the fourth kingdom in nature, the human. The healer along this line of work, and such healers are practically non-existent at this time because the fourth ray is not in incarnation, heals primarily through the use of the appropriate sound or sounds. In the early stages when this technique comes into demonstration, music will be largely used by the healer to bring about a cure or to facilitate the process of death or departure. It will, however, be music with one constantly recurring chord, which will embody the note of the fourth ray and of the human kingdom. Healing by the means of sound will be one of the first healing unfoldments to be noted at the close of the next century. More teaching along this line would be useless until the fourth ray again cycles into manifestation. The fifth ray technique. That which has been given must be used, that which emerges from within the given mode will find its place within the healer's plan. That which is hidden must be seen, and from the three, great knowledge will emerge. For these the healer seeks. To these the healer adds the two which are as one, and so the fifth must play its part and the five must play its part and the five must function as if one. The energies descend, pass through and disappear, leaving the one who could respond with karma yet to dissipate and taking with them him who may not thus respond and so must likewise disappear. The obvious and simplest meaning of the fifth ray mode of healing is that the healer, working scientifically and largely on concrete levels, employs all aids to bring about a cure, starting with appropriate physical care and passing on to subtler modes of healing. Again, I would point out that physical aid can be as divinely used as the more mysterious methods which the metaphysical healer of the present time believes to be so profoundly more effective. End of page 304. Just as all modern knowledge, developed on the physical plane, through the personalities of men and women of insight and genius everywhere, is useful to the disciple and initiate, in time and space, so it is with the medical sciences. Just as right application of these varying sciences has to be made by the disciple or the initiate in order to bring about spiritual results, so must it be when the healer is at work. All work becomes spiritual when rightly motivated, when wise discrimination is employed and soul power is added to the knowledge gained in the three worlds. The dynamic use of energy in one of its 7 streams, added to the sane understanding and work of the modern physician, aided by the healer, who works as does a catalyst, can produce miracles when destiny so ordains. He metaphysical healer who works solely on the subtler levels is like the spiritual worker who fails so constantly to precipitate the needed financial assets on the physical plane. This is caused frequently by a subtle, though usually unrecognized, sense of superiority with which the average healer and the esotericist views his problem of materialization of either physical health or money. Ponder on this and realize that fifth ray methods carry through to the physical plane. There they engender conflict and eventually produce a physical precipitation of the desired nature. In what I have said anent the fifth ray techniques, I have given more hints and information than in any of the others. The sixth ray technique. Cleaving the waters, let the power descend, the healer cries. He minds not how the waters may respond, they oft bring stormy waves and dire and dreadful happenings. The end is good. The trouble will be ended when the storm subsides and energy has fulfilled its charted destiny. Straight to the heart the power is forced to penetrate, and into every channel, nadi, nerve and spleen the power must seek a passage and a way, and thus confront the enemy who has elected entrance and settled down to live. Ejection, ruthless, sudden and complete, is undertaken by the one who sees naught else but perfect functioning and brooks no interference. This perfect functioning opens thus the door to life eternal or to life on earth for yet a little while. This technique is curiously potent and sudden when the healer is on the sixth ray. The results are drastic and full of pain, but the results are sure healing or death, and oft the latter. The sixth ray healer is seldom disciplined or wise at this time, owing to this being the end of the sixth ray cycle. When again the sixth ray comes into manifestation, humanity will have progressed far along the path, and the present aggressive, too sure, fanatical sixth ray healer will not reappear. Today they are the majority, and their work is not good. It is well intentioned, but the technique is ignorantly applied, and the end justifies not the assurance of the healer, leading to frequent deception of the patient. The seventh ray technique. Energy and force must meet each other, and thus the work is done. Color and sound in ordered sequence must meet and blend, and thus the work of magic can proceed. Substance and spirit must evoke each other and, passing through the center of the one who seeks to aid, produce the new and good. The healer energizes thus with life the failing life, driving it forth or anchoring it yet more deeply in the place of destiny. All seven must be used, and through the seven there must pass the energies the need requires, creating the new man who has forever been and will forever be, and either here or there. In this technique you have the clue to them all, for the work of the seventh ray healer is to bring together the life and the substance which will take the place of the substance which is diseased, and bring new life to aid the recovery. The glory of life lies in consummation and in emergence. This is the prime task and the prime reward of all true healers. It is this technique of attraction and substitution which will be brought to a fine point of scientific expression in the coming new age, wherein the seventh ray will dominate our planet, producing that which is new and needed and determining the coming culture, civilization and science. End of page 305. End of chapter 59. End of esoteric healing.